Well, I was going to go to the parking garage to make this, but it's closed because only government employees can use the public parking garage, apparently, until 5 p.m. I'm making it my car at the park. So, let's talk about space is fake. Or is it? Short answer, no. Space is not fake. The story about what we're told we do in space is fake. And that's kind of my whole point. So, I'm a conspiracy realist. Obviously, I believe in a lot of conspiracy theories, but they're not really theories when they keep getting proven right over and over again. And the term conspiracy theory was literally coined by the CIA to discredit conspiracy theories because of the connotation of the word theory. That has to do with the meaning of language and then how it's been obfuscated through time, but that is an entirely separate video, which I will make at some point. The focus of this one, however, is space and kind of the way it's presented to us and things you can do to actually find objective truth for yourself. And yeah, my mustache is uneven. I can't really help it, but I did put it up for you guys, so you're welcome. Let's start with the claim that space is fake. So that's generally when you hear that, someone is saying that either the Earth is flat or the Earth is not a globe, as they say, or even if the Earth is a globe, it's surrounded by a firmament, which is, in some very debatable interpretations of the Bible, there's a hard limit that you cannot pass through in the sky, which I would say is more like the Booty's void or something, a void at the end of our galaxy, but still besides the point. Or that was besides the point. You can prove to yourself that space is real, and it's relatively easy, at least if you actually really care. Like, you need personal empirical experience and data proof that it is real, and there are a few ways to do that, and it kind of touches on the moon landing conspiracy, which is one that I'm actually not completely decided upon, and mostly because if you get a laser strong enough and the proper equipment to read the light going out and coming back from said laser and a reflector, you can shine a laser at the moon, measure how long it takes to get there and come back, how much light would have been lost due to radiation in between that time, and a whole cohort of other things having to do with the idea that general physics, as it's presented to us through school and even in independent research, say Khan Academy or Wikipedia, is 99.9% accurate and real. And the distance between the Earth and the moon, and say your laser and the reflector on the moon, and the speed of light, the time it would take to travel and come back because of the speed of light, all of those things actually add up perfectly, and they're personally verifiable. So you could make some crazy argument that, okay, we just put something up right on to or next to the firmament and then manipulate the numbers to make it work. Okay. Then we get on to GPS, which every person I know uses. I don't even know any boomers that don't use GPS anymore. Okay, so you cannot make a working GPS system without accounting for the curvature of the globe. A lot of GPS software is open source, so you can just, download your phone, download the open source GPS software, use it. Does it work? Okay. Look, it's open source, so read the code for that GPS software. Surprise, surprise, there are functions that account for the curvature of the globe. Not only do they account for the curvature of the globe, they account for where the satellites are in space over the globe, and then how our devices on Earth interact with that and communicate with it. And not only does it require space to be real because of the location and positioning, or that is why it requires space to be real, at least in this example, because of the location and positioning, and how they know where to send the signal to requires these satellites to be at the altitude that they say they are, which Actually, now that I think about it, might be low Earth orbit, so perhaps a poor example. Somebody's walking by. But you can still read the software and see the functions where they incorporate things for the curvature of the globe. The globe is very much real. The Earth is not flat. And you can prove that to yourself just through the GPS system. I feel like I had another example, which if I remember I'll come back to, but now let's talk about like controlled disinformation or controlled opposition, which has been just a huge thing. And it's basically the idea that if the government or the powers that be, the elites if you will, don't want certain information to get out there, and especially like the military with what they're actually doing in space, they don't want anyone to know what they're doing, their own citizens, let alone a citizen in another country. And so they do what's called controlled opposition, and they put out all these conspiracies that they put a lot of effort into making seem real. Like if you don't know any better, there are actually some convincing arguments for flat Earth. There's a lot of ways to there's also a lot of ways to cut up interviews from very famous scientists, explorers, etc., and make it seem like they thought there was a flat Earth, even though they very much didn't. And then there are some crazy people. There are people who have went around the globe and still thought it was flat, even though they went around the globe and got back to the same spot. You can make if you're intelligent, you can make a good argument for anything, which is the problem, because most people aren't intelligent, and most people don't know how to break down an argument when presented to them. They don't even know what they believe, let alone how to break down what someone else believes, especially when it's presented properly. Regardless, we're moving on. The controlled opposition works so that anyone who begins to question, hey, what are we actually doing out there? Like, we've really went 50 years without like a major mission to the moon or anything? Oh, I guess we had one like a few months ago, but besides the point. That's the first time we've done anything crazy since. The idea is that by spreading these fake conspiracies, talking about all this bullshit that can be disproven, that's the whole idea. You get people who fall for it and then argue for it because they see and read stuff online and they're presented with very convincing but incorrect or false arguments. And then people like me will argue with them, and it creates an online content farm where the algorithm picks up on all the engagement and gives it to other people, and then conspiracists are generally convinced by the former because they know that something's up. The story isn't the way they say it is, and then it's presented as, oh, all the people who also understand that the story isn't the way they say it is actually think that the Earth is flat. When that's not the way it is, that's just the way it's presented. And people fall into that. But, sorry. You want to get into like what they're actually doing, I'll just give you a couple examples to look into. Direct energy weapons, and especially satellite-mounted direct energy weapons. It's a pretty deep rabbit hole. We've had them for a very long time, and they've only gotten insanely powerful. There are public patents for all of that. I'm not going to go into it any further because that's one of the topics that YouTube really does not like. And I'm used to talking on Instagram where I can say whatever I want. I forget that when you can make long form content that people actually tune into talking about certain topics actually will get your channel taken down or completely shadow banned. I've been shadow banned on Instagram more than 50 times. I've had my account deleted 4 times, so. And that's where I can say anything. Imagine what'll happen here if I, bring up specific DEW patents. And they're not going to be too happy. Moving on, we have the space planes from Lockheed Martin, beginning in, I believe, the late 80s, but perhaps the early 90s. We made planes that were capable of space flight, and the public story is that it was showing NASA that we could have like reusable landers, and it's kind of what Tesla has been doing, or Elon Musk has been doing with SpaceX with the reusable rockets. Except the cutting edge, those are commercial public use, like the one-offs that the government and military make which of course I can't give you a fucking source for that's gonna be peer reviewed. Oh yeah, this is the secret plane project they have, and this is what it does. If that's what you want for proof, fuck off. Go somewhere else. Like, sorry. If there's, I don't know. I got lost in thought there because it's like, you talk about like the space planes, like the X-33 was a big one. The military and some scientists did a lot of stuff with that one because it was one of the first, I believe, like easy low gravity, or like you could achieve zero gravity repeatedly and like relatively cheap and easy. So it was really good for like science and research because you could have that environment. Trying to remember exactly what it was so you could look it up, but people have, I'm just gonna say that, you know what I was saying about reflectors and lasers, I want to say what's happened is that there's a large number of people that have hit space planes with their reflectors and lasers, and obviously because it's supposed to work, they thought something was up, they tried it again and realized that they hit a different object, and then, you know, they find the space plane. The government knows where every laser is being pointed at all times. They get a visit from the government. They get an NDA. No more talk of the space plane after their first social media post. That's another thing. I'd try not to get off topic. I'm really trying. But here, let's do a conclusion or a summary. Space and physics as it's generally presented are true and real. I'm not saying that it's 100% right and accurate. Our system could be pretty off, but the model that we've built is pretty tight. And there are definitely things that are hidden from us, like Tesla's ideas of free energy. When you get really high hertz or high frequency electricity, some weird stuff starts happening, which is why the standard is 60, so no weird stuff happens. I'm trying to think what else. There's ferroresonance. That's more an electrical engineering topic, but like, there's so much that we supposedly can't explain about, especially electricity and magnetism, that we do know a lot more about, but it's hidden under the Invention Secrecy Act of, I believe, 1954, which, look into it if you didn't know. I believe at least 7,000 patents have been seized by the government because it would change the world too much or give someone too much of an advantage over another in any sort of the word military or economically competitive. Free energy exists. This is why the space is fake thing. If we knew what we could actually do with space and what the government knows or what the elites know about physics and technology, we would have free energy by now. I mean, Tesla made free energy and they stole all his research. Now we're getting conspiratorial, but it's documented that they took all of the research out of the hotel he died at. They kept his nephew from entering the room, I believe, while they took all of it out in chess. Trump's uncle, I want to say, was in charge of that, but again, I'm getting off topic. There's just too much rolling around up here. I'm going to keep this to 15 minutes, so I got 1 minute left. I failed on my summary. Space is real. You can prove it's real. You can perform physics experiments and test the numbers you get, and they're going to be within your reasonable margin of error for you doing it in your backyard or your basement or whatever. The conspiracies that you hear about, like flat Earth, and mainly flat Earth is all I'm thinking of right now, aliens, is to distract you from what we actually do in space. And what we actually do in space is a lot of military application, but also the cutting edge of science is no joke, 50 years ahead of where we are now. If you go, you need to spend as much time on Wikipedia as I have seeing when stuff is said to have came out, and then you read another article that talks about the technology 30 years prior, but no one reads the second article. 15 minutes, so I'm done. Thanks for listening. I'll make more videos, hopefully.